All right, so we want to solve using the quadratic formula. This quadratic equation, 2x squared plus 6x minus 3 equals 0. And, instructions say to solve using the quadratic formula. And, the one reason is because it's not factorable, right? If it's factorable, then that's always going to be the easier way to solve, right? But, in this case, it's not factorable, so we should use a quadratic formula. And now we know that quadratic formula is based on this guy, right? Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So first thing we want to do is just identify the values of a, b, and c. Right, so here a is equal to 2, which is the coefficient of the x squared term. B is going to equal 6, which is the coefficient of the x term. And c is the constant term, the number by itself, in this case, which is negative 3. And what we want to do then is plug these values into the quadratic formula, right? Well, what is a quadratic formula? Okay, it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of this divided by 2a. Right, now this is certainly a formula that you do want to remember or at least have handy. Right, and what it does is we're just going to plug in these values of a, b, and c, and the great thing about this is it gives us our solutions. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug these guys in, right? X is going to equal negative b, so negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 6 squared, minus 4 times 2 times negative 3. Notice I put these in parentheses because of the negatives, right? I want to make sure I don't lose track of those. And then over 2a, so times 2 down here. Okay. Now let's just simplify what's inside the radicals here, right? So 6 squared is 36, and then 4 times 2 times 3, but it's negative 3 though, right? So we notice that this should change to a plus, okay, and this is going to be a plus 24, right? So 34, or 36 plus 24 gives us 60, right? So what do we end up with here? We end up with x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 60 all over 4. Okay? And this guy we can reduce, right? 60. Okay? So 60 is going to be 4 times 15, and we like the 4, right? Because we know what the square root of 4 is, right? The square root of 4 is 2. So this becomes negative 6 plus or minus 2 radical 15 all over 4. Okay? And then from here we can just split these guys up, right? So we get negative 6 over 4 plus or minus 2 rad 15 over 4, and then we can just finally reduce it to these guys. So we got a final answer of negative 3 over 2 plus or minus radical 15 over 2. Right? And these are our two solutions, right? So the quadratic formula gives us the two solutions for this particular quadratic equation.